Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our first and brand new rookie series. Today we'll be going over Intro to Adaptive Track and Field. So just to go over a little bit about how this webinar is going to work, we have reserved a portion at the end of the presentation for question and answer. So for the bulk of the presentation, you will be muted, but we'll open it up for questions at the end. And throughout the presentation, feel free to drop any questions you have into the chat, or you can use the Q&A portion or section at the bottom of the screen there to ask your questions. So we'll dive right in. Maybe, there we go. All right, so the purpose of these introductory webinars is to just provide some background information about our organization, if you're not familiar with us, who can participate in adaptive sports, and the different programs we offer as far as community-based and interscholastic programs. We'll provide specific information tonight about adaptive track and field and talk about different participation opportunities and how you can get involved. And provide our practice and competition schedules if you are interested. And then we'll provide an opportunity to hear from a current athlete. So he'll have a portion at the end where he'll talk about his experience with track and field. And then we also just wanted to provide a place for you to ask any questions you may have. So our main presenter today is going to be Brett Falloway. He is our Director of Equipment Operations and is also a Program Manager in Wayne County. I am Brooke Keeber. I'm a Program Manager for Wayne County as well. And then our guest speaker today is Casey Falloway. He's an Adaptive Sports Ohio athlete and is currently training for the Paralympic trials. And just to start, I'll go over a little bit about our organization. We're a nonprofit that provides a variety of community-based and interscholastic adaptive sports opportunities throughout Ohio. It was founded in 2009 in Worcester by Lisa Falloway, and the idea for the organization was inspired by her son Casey, who was born with spina bifida, and Casey's the athlete here with us to speak today. Casey was always active as a child and loved sports growing up, and he always wanted a chance to play like his peers. And Lisa realized how sports immensely benefited Casey and thought that other individuals with physical disabilities should get that same experience and get to receive those benefits. So that's really how Adaptive Sports Ohio was born. Our mission is to remove barriers to ensure that individuals with physical disabilities have a chance to play and utilize sports to elevate ability and empower futures. So we're headquartered in Worcester, Ohio, but we do have offices in Cleveland and Youngstown. We have active programming in 6 different counties in Ohio, and through interscholastic opportunities and our annual Summer Dream Camp, our reach is truly statewide. The question we get a lot is, who are adaptive sports for? Who's eligible to participate? So adaptive sports are for individuals with a physical disability that limits their ability to participate in a typical sport. And some common examples of different disability types within our sports are spinal cord injuries, spina bifida, amputees, individuals with visual impairments, cerebral palsy, scoliosis, just to name a few. There are many, many others that I haven't listed. And a common misconception about a lot of our sports and programs is that you have to be an everyday wheelchair user to participate. That's definitely not the case, even though a lot of our sports have wheelchair in the name, like wheelchair basketball, wheelchair tennis. They might use a manual sports chair. You do not have to be an everyday wheelchair user to participate in these sports. And we have a lot of athletes who are not everyday wheelchair users. So adaptive sports modify typical sports by either adding a piece of equipment or modifying a playing rule. So if there's a typical sport you really enjoy, I guarantee there's a way to adapt it for you. So we offer a wide variety of sports and like to break them down into kind of 2 different categories: community-based programs and interscholastic programs. With our community-based programs, those are open to all ages and disabilities. We offer competitive and recreational opportunities. So if you want to get a little more competitive, more elite competition, you can choose to travel with us to different tournaments around different states and really compete. Or if you just want to stay active and have fun and learn the basics of the sport, you can compete recreationally with us. With every one of our programs and sports, all the equipment is provided. We have a large inventory of equipment that we transport to and from our different programs. If athletes do have their own chairs or own equipment, they're welcome to use that, but we do have program chairs and equipment available for them. And the sports do vary by location. So you can see the list there of the community-based programs that we offer. It's not guaranteed that every single one of those is going to be available in Worcester, Youngstown, and Cleveland. But I would definitely recommend reaching out because we can connect you to different playing opportunities near you if you're not at a location that offers that sport. With our interscholastic programs, those are school-based. They provide an opportunity for students with a physical disability to represent their school teams. So we'll talk today about our adaptive track and field and how we support those interscholastic athletes. We'll get into more details about that in a bit. But we also have a interscholastic wheelchair basketball program that we've started. It started with 6 teams last year, and we have plans to expand that, hopefully double it this year and triple it within the next few years. These wheelchair basketball teams are district-wide teams. So kids with physical disabilities in grades 1st through 12 can all compete on this interscholastic wheelchair basketball team. And then tonight was the first night that we're offering these introductory sessions. We plan to offer at least one per month, highlighting upcoming programs. So our next session will be on June 2nd, and we'll feature hand cycling and wheelchair lacrosse, and then wheelchair softball in July. We'll really round out our summer programs. So if you're interested in any future programs, you can definitely reach out to us. We'll provide our contact information here at the end of the presentation. So we can be sure to add you to the email list and make sure you get the registration for any upcoming sessions. And then these sessions will also be added as events on Facebook. So you can join that Facebook event and get the registration link that way. We're also working to get these added to a page on our website. So stay tuned for that. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Brett, and he'll start covering track and field.
All right, hello everybody. So first thing we're going to do is just a quick review of the equipment. We got a picture here of a racing wheelchair and a throwing chair. We're just going to kind of go over the parts of those two and talk a little bit about the gloves. So first off, we start at the back of the wheelchair there. We got the rear wheels, which is pretty self-explanatory. They come in 2 sizes, either a 28 or a 26 inch. So somebody smaller or younger would use a 26, and then a larger athlete or an adult would use the 28 inch. They could come in just standard spoke wheels, which are going to be the cheapest alternative. Or you could get a full solid carbon wheel, which are quite expensive. Probably talking about $2,200 just for a set of the back of the chair. The push rim, next, you'll see that ring that's on the back wheel. That's what the athlete actually strikes to propel the chair. And the size of those would depend on the arm length of the athlete. So if they have longer arms, they're going to have bigger ones. If they got shorter arms, typically they're going to have smaller size push rim. Those are just a piece of aluminum tubing covered with rubber. Next, you'll see the cage, which is the area between the rear wheels there. That's where the athlete would either sit or kneel and get strapped in. That's where they would be when they're propelling the chair. And then the frame is the long piece there that's connected from the back axle, and it goes all the way out to the front end where it holds the fork for the front wheel and all the steering components. So that's like just basically connects everything together. Next would be the compensator, which is that piece underneath the frame there. That's actually a piece, like a triangle shaped piece that is connected to that front fork. So That is used to either set the chair, that front wheel straight for going in the straightaway on the track, or you can hit it on the left side and it slightly turns that front wheel for then going around the curves. You don't have to keep steering and pushing at the same time. You can just set the front wheel to the left and it'll follow the curve around. So the next front wheel, which is self-explanatory, it's a 20-inch, so it's roughly a little more than half the size of the back wheel. And those, again, this could be just a plain old spoked with aluminum rim, or you can get carbon fiber with spokes, and again, those are considerably more expensive. Then we'll move up to the brake there on top. The lever is mounted back there on the back of the steering stem so the athlete can reach it. And then the caliper, the part that actually squeezes the wheel, is up on that front wheel. It's underneath the front fork there. So that's the only brake on it. So it doesn't have a lot of stopping power because there's not a lot of weight out there in that front wheel. So you could actually squeeze it pretty hard, lock it up, and then the front tire would just skid. So it's not really used during high speed. It's more used during lower speed. Steering stem, which again, like I said, that brake is mounted on. That is also attached to the front fork and wheel. So you can actually use that steering stem, push it left and right to steer the chair, but it is spring loaded. So it always just comes back to center. We'll let go of it, and then your chair is running straight again. So just real quick, something just came to mind. So this is a wheelchair. So a lot of people, when they see it, they start referring to it as a bike. So it's not a bike. It doesn't have pedals, sprockets, chains, gears. I mean, it's not a bike, even though a lot of people like to refer to it as that. We try to put away from that. It is a wheelchair. It's just a really fancy wheelchair. So that's pretty much all the parts of the race chair. Then if we look at on the right there, the throwing chair, just a quick note, interscholastic athletes, if they want to, they can throw from just their everyday chair that they use to push around in every day. It's not going to be as good because it's not as solid of a base. So they're not going to throw as good out of that, but they can use it. But for disability meets, you need to have a throwing chair. So just real quick, we have the backrest, self-explanatory, backrest against it. It is height adjustable. And some of the newer chairs, it's actually adjustable to move forward and backwards. So depending on if the person's shorter or taller, you can move it. It is removable also, so you can just take it completely off if they don't want that on there. Next would be the grab bar, which again, just like it sounds, the athlete would grab a hold of it and use it to sturdy themselves and also use it to pull themselves through the throw. If they don't have a lot of core, they can use that to actually pull themselves through the throw. And again, that's removable. So if they want to just get that out of the way, if they have a lot of core strength and they want to just kind of do more of a rotation, they can just take that out. The seat, that is the maximum height for that is 72 centimeters off the ground. So we have some people that build their own chairs or have somebody build them for them, and there's a limit, 72 inches to the top of the seat. It does need to be square or rectangle, and the front of the seat, so it's the arrow is pointing there. It has to be facing towards the throwing sector, which is the area where you either throw the shot, discus, whatever you're throwing. It used to be you could angle it, turn it sideways, but now it has to be facing directly out towards the center. And then the footrest down there, it is adjustable, so it can be moved up and down to however the athlete needs it to rest their foot on. And then we have a note down there about a thigh strap may be added to the chair. But also, they can add a waist strap. They can put one over their knees, maybe around their calves, their legs if they need to, and also on their feet. So they can get basically any point from their waist down, they can strap themselves in just to make it a more solid foundation for throwing. That's all for that. So next, we're going to look at the events. All right, next we're going to look at different types of chairs, excuse me. So there are two different types of racing chairs, and just like it says there, sitting and kneeling. So if you look at the young lady on your left, that's a sitting chair. You know, it's basically you see her legs just like you would sit in a regular chair. And she has the footrest down there that her feet are strapped onto. And then on the right, this young man, he is in a kneeler. So you can see where his entire legs are just tucked up under him. And if you look down below between the rear wheels, you can see his feet then coming down, just hanging down below him. As far as an advantage or disadvantage, most top racers are kneelers. But I always like to tell people the world record holder in the 100-meter is a sitter. So, you know, you don't have to be one of the other two to do well in this sport. It's a matter of some people can't bend their legs underneath them to kneel, and they have to sit. So those are the two different types of racing chair.
Sorry, Brett, there's some delay in
Okay.
switching slides.
No problem. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about track events now. So the track events is anywhere from the 100-meter, which is just one straightaway, to the 5,000-meter, which is 12 3/4 laps. So that's a bit longer. Going to be in good shape for that one. So there are multiple wheelchair classes, and there are classes for like cerebral palsy, quadriplegics, or somebody who's higher functioning. Maybe they're just missing a lower limb and they choose to use a wheelchair, and there's classes for those. And then just kind of in between, there's different classes. There's a VI classes, visually impaired. So if you look on the left there, that's a Paralympic runner and his guide on the left. Depending on the level of impairment, they may or may not use a guide. They may be able to go without one. So that depends on the class and their comfort level. CP ambulatory, so you may have somebody who just wants to run and not be in a wheelchair, you know, cerebral palsy or maybe you know, maybe a brain injury. And then we have amputees, which you see the middle bottom picture there, and then lady on the right, those are lower limb amputees. There are also classes for upper limb amputees. That's the basics of the track events. So we'll go on to field events. So everybody probably, if you look at this list, knows what all these are: shot put, discus, maybe not the club, but the javelin, long jump, high jump. Club is basically like a miniature bowling pin, and that is an event for quadriplegics. So they use that. They can throw it many different ways. They can throw it underhand, sideways, overhand. They can go backwards, kind of throw it over their shoulder. All depends on, you know, the best way for them to throw it. But if you look at the top left picture, that's a seated thrower there, shot put. And then we have top middle is a dwarf doing the discus. And then top right, we have an upper arm, or an upper limb, I should say, amputee doing the javelin. Bottom left is a visually impaired long jumper, and the long jump is the only field event that the visually impaired do. And then you can see a single leg amputee then they're doing the high jump. And we also have amputees that use prosthetics and do so that kind of gives you the basics of that. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about interscholastic track. And so this might not, you know, be something you're interested in. You might be out of school, but we're going to touch some more on some other things here in a bit. So if you just hang around with us for just a few minutes while we go through this interscholastic part. So we've advocated since 2009 for students to have the opportunity to compete on their junior and high school teams. Casey was the first one in the state to be on his school track team using a racing wheelchair. And from there, in June of 2012, the Athletic Association announced a decision to include wheelchair competitors at the state meet. Since then, over 80 athletes have represented their schools. I would say with several new athletes that have come out this year, that number is probably a little bit higher. As far as the events, before I get into that, the students are allowed to compete in any event they want during like the regular season and the meets. But as far as when they go to state, the ones that are held for them in the junior high are the 100-meter, 400-meter shot put. And then once in high school, they can compete in the 100, 400, 800 shot put, and then at the state championship at that high school level. In order to qualify, there are time standards. So they just have to meet a certain time standard or throw a minimum distance, beat the minimum distance in the shot put to qualify. Those do have to be at a fat meet. Fat is a fully automatic timing, so it's computer timed and not hand timed. That way it takes out the human error. Athlete eligibility, they have to be enrolled in grades 7 through 12. They have to have a permanent and documented physical disability. So someone with just an injury who's got a broken leg, whatever, they tore their ACL, they're not eligible to be in this class and under the seeded division. They have to complete the adaptive sports verification form, have it on file with their athletic department and the high school athletic association. And lastly, they have to maintain the minimum GPA requirements, just like any other athlete. All right, how we support interscholastic athletes. So we loan out racing chairs, the racing gloves, and also the throwing chairs to athletes all over the state. They are expensive. I'm going to say around $3,500 now for a racing chair, just a basic one. So not everybody can just afford to go buy a racing chair. So we do loan those out. Gloves are around $200. Throwing chairs are about $1,200. So just really benefits the students that we can actually loan these pieces of equipment to them. We also host adaptive track trainings for the students and the coaches. That way we don't just give them the piece of equipment and like, here, go have fun, figure it out, because it is not the easiest sport to figure out how to use the chair correctly and the correct technique for pushing. So we do host trainings, and then we're available throughout the season. We try to get out to at least one track meet of every student that we loan a chair out to, just to see how they're doing, any issues they're having, check their equipment over. And then we provide support at the junior high and the high school state meets. We go there. We have all our extra equipment and tools, just in case anything happens. We don't want anybody miss their race because they get a flat tire or a bolt falls out. So we're there to support them to make sure they get through those meets okay. All right, a little bit about our community-based track and field. Again, we loan out the chairs, the gloves, throwing chairs to anyone interested. We got athletes through the classification process. So when it comes to disability meets, athletes are put in different classes. So just for instance, wheelchair classes, there's 51 would be quadriplegics, 52 would be they have quite a bit of issues with their hands, arms. They still have, some decent shoulder and some core. 53 would be basically, that would be Casey's class, fully functioning upper body except no core. So it doesn't have really any lower back that he can lift himself up and doesn't have the core to squeeze into the, and 54 would be fully functioning upper body. That may be somebody who's lost in a lower limb. They have shoulders, arms, hands, back, core, everything is fully functioning. So, they have, again, I said earlier, CP classes, different classes. So we try to guide them to where they might fit. So that way they can see if they would be possibly competitive in that class. We host weekly training sessions. So try to get them out once a week, just coach them, fix the use it may be going on. And we also travel to national competitions, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. So here's our schedule for this year. April and May track practices, Saturdays 11 to 12:30 at the College of Worcester. As long as it's not pouring down rain, we should be out there. June and August, then we switch over to road racing. So that's, I believe, the week after the high school state meet, we switch over to road racing. And that is Wednesdays, 6:30 to 7:45. And for if we have any remaining track practices, they would be at the College of Worcester again. And then once we switch over, it's the Civil Valley Trail, which we get on in Dalton, Ohio. National events. So opportunities to compete as part of Team Adaptive Sports Ohio. So here's just a list of some of the meets that we offer. As you can see, some of those are coming up really fast. The Glass of Games coming up really fast here. Desert Challenge is in Arizona. U.S. Paralympic Nationals is June 17th to 20th. So that is the only one where you'd have to hit time standards. So that's more for the elite. Endeavor Games Fort Wayne is in June. Junior Nationals, that's for, I believe, 23 is the oldest you can be, like 7, 8 to 23. You can compete at that. And then Adaptive Sports Ohio organized competition. That's to be determined. In the past, we've hosted either games or a meet up at Baldwin Wallace University. They just redid the track. So we had a little bit of time off here that we haven't held those, but we'd like to start hosting those again in the future. Road racing, that's longer distance. So anywhere from probably 2 miles to 5 miles our athletes go, depending on, their fitness level and their function level. And again, they take place on a trail rather than a track. You don't want to just keep going in circles for 5 miles. It's much more enjoyable out on the trail. And they use it to train for our annual Casey's Challenge 5K, which is a fundraiser for Adaptive Sports Ohio that we host every year. And it's just nice to get them out, get them fit for a couple months before they tackle that. Getting started. So are you ready to try track and field? I hope so. I hope somebody on here tonight, we can get you out and get you in a track chair and get you throwing. So you would just contact us and we would send you the program packet with the info and registration link so we can get you signed up. And if you're a seated athlete, we're going to make sure that we find you a chair that fits comfortably. We have many different sizes and styles of chairs. So we put you in the most comfortable, best fit that we can find for you. We help you to understand the basics of chair usage and maintenance. Learn proper technique. Again, it's not like pushing your everyday chair, or if any of you have ever used a court chair, a basketball chair. It's totally different. And then teach you how to make adjustments to your chair. Again, you have to adjust that compensator to get your chair to run straight and to follow the curve on the track. And then if you're a non-wheelchair competitor, we'll assist you in achieving your participation goals. So whether you want to just have fun or you want to try to make Team USA, we'll help you in that. Again, help you navigate the classification process if you wish to participate in national meets.
All right, thank you, Brett. Now I'm excited to introduce our guest speaker for tonight. So Casey Falloway began wheelchair racing in 2005 and won his first National Junior Disability Championship in 2006. As was already mentioned, in 2009, he overcame many barriers to become the first student in Ohio to join a school track team using a racing wheelchair. And his dream of representing Team USA was realized in August of 2019, when he had the opportunity to compete in the 100 meter representing Team USA at the Pan American Games in Lima, Peru. He's currently training with the hopes of representing Team USA at the Paralympic Games in Tokyo. So Casey, thank you so much for joining us tonight to discuss your experience with track and field. I guess, can you start off by just telling us how you got started in track and field and what your journey with the sport has been like?
Yeah, so thank you, Brooke, for having me be a part of this. It's all started back in 2000. 2003 or 4, when my family moved to Indiana to for my mom to actually go pursue a degree for college. She wanted to be a youth pastor. But during that time, I was in school, but I didn't have a lot of good experiences in terms of, being able to fit in. And it really took a toll on me mentally and emotionally going through school at a young age, because I realized that I was different from everybody else. None of my peer students were disabled. And especially through things like gym class and recess, the times where I wanted to play and do the activities that they were doing, I realized that I couldn't do that because of my physical limitation. But when I got introduced to sports through actually a postcard in the mail from a local rehab hospital about it was basically an expo, a sports expo that they were putting on at their facility. From that day on, it completely changed my outlook of life. I came to realize that I wasn't the only one with a physical disability in the world. There were people with the same disability that I have, spina bifida. There were amputees, blind athletes, anything that we discussed. And that completely changed my outlook. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity to have been introduced to the world of sport.
Awesome. So Casey, being the first student in Ohio to join your school track team, that certainly came with a lot of challenges. But how were you able to push through those challenges and find the motivation to continue competing?
Well, in terms of being able to compete, it really came down to having the right support system. So my parents saw what the benefit of sport was for me back when I got started, and that carried over to when we moved back to Ohio, and when I was still going through school, but I was doing the things by myself, just on my own, starting my career. But when it came to a school opportunity, my mom helped me tremendously, fought for me through with the athletic association and whatnot, and it completely just changed my outlook of being in school. I had the chance to not only represent my school in a sport, but I was also a part of what my peers were doing at the same time. So.
All right, and Casey, you've done a lot of other adaptive sports. What would you say drew you to track and field, as opposed to, you participate on our sled hockey team as well, and have played a lot of other different sports, basketball. So what was it about track and field that you loved so much?
Well, I'm naturally just the athletic type. Track was one of the first sports that I started with. I started with track and basketball. And I fell in love with both. But in terms of the most success as an athlete, track is where it was for me.
So with junior high and high school track, that doesn't use a classification system, but as you started competing nationally and internationally with Paralympic competitions, those do use classification. Can you just explain a little bit about that process and the different events associated with it?
Yeah. So okay. Can you repeat the question? Sorry, I got the interruption.
Yeah, I guess just wondering about how classification works. So just explaining that process. In junior high and high school, everyone competes together. But I guess what's the purpose of the classification system? And
well, the purpose for the classification is to level the playing field, basically. So as my dad mentioned before, I don't have the use of my abdominal muscles, whereas like the 54 class is the highest class for the wheelchairs, which they have full functioning upper body. So it just levels the playing field depending on function.
okay. And can you tell us a little bit about what your experiences was like competing on Team USA in Peru?
Yeah, so it was an amazing experience. I not only had the chance to go somewhere, but I had the chance to represent something bigger than just myself. Being able to represent my community, the people that are behind me in terms of my career. And, it's just a good experience to be as part of something bigger, to show people what can be, accomplished.
All right, and say somebody on here is maybe interested in starting to get involved in track and field, but they're not, fully committed. What would you say to someone that might be interested in the sport about why they should get involved?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what sport you get into, but the big thing for me is where I realized that I was capable of doing the things that my able-bodied peers were doing at a young age in school, as I mentioned. But it's about using basically my darkest moment to shine a light on being able to do those things that I wanted to do as a kid. And just because I had a disability doesn't mean I can't accomplish what I had originally dreamed, because here I am 16 years later and having represented Team USA at Lima, and just being able to show people that they can use those dark moments in life to that can morph into success.
All right. Casey, thank you so much for hopping on here with us and talking about your experience. We can go ahead and open it up for questions for either Casey, Brett, myself. If you have any questions about the sport or want more information about Casey's experience, you can either put it in the chat, the Q&A, or if you want to ask in person, You can use the raise your hand function and we can unmute you and you can ask it live. All right, looks like we do have a question. What ages participate in your community-based? And I can go ahead and answer that. So all ages can participate in community-based. All ages, all disabilities are welcome. Right now, most of our athletes are seated competitors, wheelchair athletes, but we definitely are looking to get more diverse. So, if you are an amputee or have a visual impairment and want to get involved, we can definitely provide resources. We'd love to have you come out and work with you again to accomplish your goals. We can share resources for grants to get equipment, to get running blades. So you're definitely not limited to just wheelchair competitors.
I'll just jump in real quick. I believe our youngest maybe around 8, and then we've had even younger than that. And we have a lady who just started track with us this recently who is 67. So quite the range in age.
And do you have to compete? And no, you do not have to compete in races and tournaments. If you just want to do it to stay active, you are more than welcome to continue to join us at practice. Just for the experience, just to stay active. We will work with you in whatever your goals are with your participation in track and field.
And you may find out then once, whether it's track and field or one of the other sports, that once you get involved and you're around the people who are amazing, that might be where it leads to. You might find out, hey, maybe I do want to compete and build relationships with these people and have fun. Maybe not, but it could lead to that.
All right. Any other questions? All right. And before we head out, we do have our contact information on the screen here. Brett's email is listed there, brett@adaptivesportsohio.org. So if you have any questions about getting involved or about equipment, anything, you can feel free to reach out to him or give us a call at our office. Our office phone number is listed. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. So you can follow us on social media to stay updated about what's going on with our programs. So thank you all for joining us. And if there's no more questions, you guys have a fantastic night.
Have a good night, everybody.